Looks like Borderlands 4 is showing up at the Game Awards, Ubisoft is shutting down a title that released this year, we got an update on the future of Elden Ring, and there is way more gaming news to go over. And while Jordan will be back next week, he's currently still on holiday, so Dennis, that's me, will be standing in for him this video. Everything else will be just as you know it though, so let's jump right in. And let's start off with some good news, as we received a ton of new info on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, including the fact that the game will be releasing 1 week earlier on February 4th, which is awesome as February is very crowded with AC Shadows, Avowed and Monster Hunter Wilds all releasing in that same month. So moving KCD 2 up a bit gives it more room to breathe, and the devs also communicated that the game has gone gold, meaning that moving the release date won't impact the quality of the release either. And yeah, I've heard a ton of positive buzz about this one, so I'm hoping this gives me an opportunity to try it before we get lost in AC Shadows. We also got a cool new story trailer to hype us up even more, and the devs provided some technical clarifications for both consoles and PC. The full PC specs are up, I'll leave a link to them in the description, and both Xbox and PlayStation consoles will support a quality and a performance mode. And if you upgrade it to the PS5 Pro, then you'll be happy to learn the game is also PS5 Pro enhanced. Again, I am stoked as we're kicking off a big year in gaming with a very unique medieval RPG. The team is clearly very passionate about it, so let's hope they hit their mark. Unfortunately, it's not all good news this week, as Ubisoft is shutting down a game and more studios. But first, I want to talk about the sponsor of today's video, the futuristic tactical PvP battle game Infinity Hexadome Tactics. Enter into a futuristic gladiator arena where you'll fight against other players in turn-based tactical battles. While the top-down view and hexagonal grid might make you think of games like XCOM, there's one big difference, and that's the characters in your team. Each one of them has a completely unique personality and aesthetic, like there's a gunslinger, a samurai, a hacker, and even some things not quite human. And they all come with their own set of skills and a different role to fill in combat, like tank or support. You'll make a team of 4 from the available 12 heroes at launch, with more to come after release, and then you enter into the arena. This tactical playing field has a ton of strategic locations, like sponsor towers that you can capture to power up your characters. Some actions also allow your heroes to hype up the crowd, which turns into a resource you can use to upgrade their various abilities. You can enter in tournaments and complete daily and weekly challenges, or practice solo versus AI or in solo challenges where you have to win under specific conditions. Hexadome Tactics is coming to Steam in 2025, and you can check out the game and wishlist it via the special link in the video description. Okay, now let's talk about Ubisoft, because as you might have heard, they are shutting down their free-to-play multiplayer shooter XDefiant. In case you aren't familiar, XDefiant is a 6v6 multiplayer shooter where you can play as characters from various Ubi franchises like Watch Dogs and Far Cry. It was released in May this year, but after a little over half a year, the decision has been made to shut the project down. The main reason listed in the company's official response is that we've not been able to attract and retain enough players in the long run to compete at the level we aim for in the very demanding free-to-play FPS market. For the game, this means that you can't download it anymore or make new purchases, and existing players will have until June 3rd, 2025 before the servers are shut down. And this likely comes as a bit of a surprise, as executive producer Mark Rubin communicated back in October that the game would not be closing down. In fact, he was already talking about stuff after Season 4, while the game will now shut down servers before the 4th season even goes live. So either a lot has changed in a very short period, or there have been some internal miscommunications. But yeah, pretty strange to read this in October and then see the game completely shut down less than 2 months later. For Ubi themselves, this also means closing their production studios in San Francisco and Osaka, and a ramp down of production at their studio in Sydney. While many developers from the closed studios will be offered new jobs at other studios within Ubisoft, close to 300 developers are still on their way out as part of this decision. So terrible news, especially considering the fact that Outlaws also underperformed and Skull and Bones was, well, Skull and Bones, so their big 2024 releases have not panned out in the way they wanted to. Let's hope Shadows early next year will be a return to form for them, because it's starting to get to the point where they kind of really need that. I'm hoping for a big gameplay update in the coming weeks, or maybe a new trailer at the Game Awards for AC Shadows. And speaking of the Game Awards, I think we got our first confirmed game to show up at Jeff Keighley's award show, and it's none other than Borderlands 4. Now, to be clear, Keighley didn't confirm anything, it was actually Gearbox CEO Randy Pitchford who dropped a hint on his personal account. Cooking up a new Borderlands 4 trailer and it's badass AF. Latest render is knocking me out. I'm not supposed to talk about it yet, but IDGAF. And he went on to tease even more, letting us know that the first frames of this new trailer are the last frames of the teaser trailer, meaning we might finally learn the identity of the mysterious mechanical character holding the Psycho mask. But the question is of course how we now know the game will show up at the Game Awards, and there are a couple of signs for this. First, the game was revealed at Gamescom Opening Night Live, another Keighley hosted show, and we tend to see a lot of returning guests at his events. Second, with a planned release somewhere in 2025, now is a good time to start getting people excited and show them some actual gameplay, and the Game Awards guarantees a big audience. The fact that Randy is talking about a render is also significant because if you're unfamiliar with editing terms, a render is basically the finished product. So while they might still want to make some tweaks, he's commenting on a full trailer, not just snippets from editing, meaning it's nearing completion. And while writing this video, that suspicion was actually confirmed, as the Gearbox social media account shared Randy's post with the mention that a new trailer is coming soon. So that's sounding an awful lot like December 12th to me. I really hope we do see the game there. We covered a ton of Borderlands 3 here on the channel and I can't wait for the next entry. And by the way, if you enjoyed the video so far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, as we do one of these weekly news roundup videos every Sunday. Staying on the topic of the Game Awards, we're of course all waiting with bated breath if FromSoft is going to announce anything at the show. They showed Armored Core 6 there in 2022, which went on to take home the trophy for best action game in the next year. But this year there is one thing we know for sure, and that is that we will not see an Elden Ring related announcement. During the PlayStation Partner Awards, Elden Ring director Hidetaka Miyazaki said, "We're not really considering developments such as Elden Ring 2, shutting the door on any speculation that a sequel is in the works." Earlier in the year, he also stated that Shadow of the Erdtree would be Elden Ring's only expansion. So does that just mean there's no more Elden Ring? Well, no, as Miyazaki also shared that FromSoft might want to develop the IP further in the future, so like with Armored Core, it could be something they decide to bring back later. We did of course hear rumors about a potential movie being considered, which would also fall under developing the IP, but a big sequel that builds on Elden Ring's foundation is, at least for now, not in the cards. And that does create an interesting situation, as I feel like we've always kind of known what the next step was for FromSoft, but it'll be really interesting to see where they go after their first big open world success. Miyazaki only shared that FromSoftware is currently working on several projects which are diverse in terms of genres, so hopefully one of those projects gets revealed soon. And while this next project is still very far away, the potential of a new Sony handheld is of course really exciting. And it's starting to look ever more likely, as this week Digital Foundry discussed the topic in their weekly podcast and said the following.
We actually heard about this handheld some months ago from a couple sources. Specifically. So we're not in the business of leaking things, but it's interesting that this finally sort of started to make its rounds, because it just sort of confirmed what we had seen and heard off the record about this existing, which is cool.
And started making the rounds here is of course referring to a Bloomberg article from not too long ago, which was the first mention of a new PlayStation handheld and said it was still in the early stages of development. So now we have two very reliable sources stating this project exists, and while that doesn't mean it will make the finish line, it is interesting that Sony is trying to dip their toes in the handheld market again. Bloomberg noted the handheld is supposed to be expanding Sony's reach and contending with Nintendo for the portable market, which is obviously the company to look up to, as they've had the most success with their handheld devices. But yeah, if this new Sony device is indeed able to play PS5 games natively, then even with the current library of games, it will be a serious contender. Now, both Bloomberg and Digital Foundry have stressed it is likely years before we actually catch a glimpse of the PSP 2, if that's even what it's gonna be called, so by that time it will likely be in competition with the Switch 2. And let's not forget that Xbox's Phil Spencer also confirmed they're working on a handheld gaming device that is also years away. So while we are still locked in the current console wars, it seems the next conflict is already on the horizon. Seriously though, let's not make fun of each other for what handheld we pick when these do come out, okay? Next week is a pretty big one for gaming, as December 9th marks the official release of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. At the moment of writing, it's sitting at an 86 on Metacritic, so definitely sounds like a game to look forward to. And on December 12th, we have the final big event of the year, the Game Awards, so let's hope for Borderlands 4 and more awesome reveals. If anything big gets shown, you can of course expect a video on it here, and we'll do a full roundup in next week's Sunday News Roundup video. So subscribe to make sure you don't miss that one, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and you can watch last week's News Roundup by clicking on the screen. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.